to start with, Ncuti, I wanted to ask you, you're the 15th Doctor. Other Doctors have talked about, there's, the pressure of living up to the legacy of this iconic character. But you're in like a rare situation where they're like billing this as season one, where it's almost kind of a soft reboot. Do you find that takes a little bit of the pressure off since they're presenting it as something a little more new? Or is it more challenging because it's up to you to kind of define it for a new audience? What's that been feeling like for you?
I've never thought about that, but I guess it does. It does take a bit of the pressure off because it feels very much like we've stepped into a new era. Russell is back, and it's like there's a whole fresh energy running through it, and so even in terms of like the Doctor is a lot more kind of joyful than we've seen before, and so it feels like there's a fresh energy running through it, and so I'm just gonna ride with that and hope that nobody holds me up to 60 years of expectation.
Millie, I was wondering if you could talk about, we've seen a lot of different dynamics between the Doctor and his companion. We've seen like romance, we've seen like father figure stuff. How would you define the relationship between your companion and Ncuti's Doctor, and like how is it different from others that have come before?
Bessies, honestly, the bestest of friends. I like to think of them as twin flames as of recent because they're connected on so many levels. Very platonic, and I think what's beautiful is that their love just grows, and they're very protective of one another. They're very on equal ground, and sometimes it's more like a damsel in distress thing, but actually they're both looking out for the damsel, which is nice, or the underdog, which I love.
Very cool. When you guys signed up for the show, were you expecting there to be this much singing and dancing? I don't want to give away too much, but there is a jukebox in the TARDIS. We did see a dance scene with a Goblin King. How has that been? Was that something you expected, or when you saw these scripts where you're like, well, this is certainly different for Doctor Who?
Oh my gosh, definitely that.
I could have never foresaw when I got cast as Doctor
that you'd be singing to a Goblin King.
To a Goblin King.
Yeah, totally.
Could have never.
You were like, oh, that'll be fine. We'll be in a cozy little audio room with a cup of tea, a mic, auto-tune, all the greatest surroundings. But no, we did it live. They were like, right, so we're gonna do a take now, and you're gonna sing it properly. And we're like, what? So yeah, that was pretty insane. I'm just glad we can hum a tune because I don't know what they would have done. It wasn't included in the audition brief. I don't know what they would have done.
I look forward to the soundtrack release that I assume is coming.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll be on Apple Music.
I think I have time for one more question. I'm just wondering, Ncuti, I know that different actors have approached the role differently, and some of them will look back to like whoever was the Doctor when they were young as like a starting point to grow their own. Is that something that you did? Did you look to any of the past Doctors in particular for inspiration, or were you trying to come in kind of fresh without doing that kind of looking back?
No, definitely looked back. Just found it so helpful, just in terms of immersing myself in the world, just in general. And it was out of like personal interest. And it was just interesting to see what was like, they were all, I've said this many times, but like they were all very much the Doctor. There's like a tangible Doctor quality about them all, but then they're all completely different from the last. And so I just found that fact in itself interesting, and trying to figure out how I can be a part, like be the continuation of that. But yeah, no, definitely my Doctor was David. And so that's who I looked back on first, I guess, and then branched out from there. And then was like, throw it all out the window. I need to do my own thing. So yeah, did that.
Hello, Jamie. Hiya.
Hi, how are you?
Strong. Go very well, thanks.
Excellent. I want to start by asking, so when you first came to Doctor Who, you started with the Doctor as the last of the Time Lords.
Yeah.
And then you leave and they bring Gallifrey back, they bring the Time Lords back.
It's like,
and now you're back again. And he's again the last of the Time Lords. Is this just the way you like the Doctor, or would you have maybe tried something different if you weren't following up where Chris left off?
Oh, that's interesting. I think he works very well as a lonely, distanced man. I would never have given him a berth on Gallifrey where he'd regularly go back to. Quite by chance, for those who might not know the history, while I was not working on the show, Gallifrey was brought back to life and then destroyed again. So I think that kind of says it's inevitable, and I like that fact. But I like the phrase "the last of the Time Lords." It makes him legendary, it makes him unique, it makes him scary in some ways, and makes him precious. So it's a phrase I'm very fond of. If I hadn't been able to use it, I simply wouldn't have used it, and he would have said I'm an adventurer and a philosopher and a traveller, and there are many more adjectives to apply to the Doctor, so that wouldn't have worried me. But I don't think he would have gone home often.
Sure. Something that struck me, I've seen the first couple episodes of the season. Something that struck me is the theme of music, of sound. And I guess the jukebox and the TARDIS should have tipped us off to that. But there's a lot of it. And I'm wondering, was that something that came out of casting someone with the talents of Ncuti Gatwa, or did you go cast someone like him because that's something you wanted to do?
Oh, that's interesting. I was heading in that direction anyway, so I wanted it to go. I've got to say, in audition, we never asked him to sing. We never checked that out. And had he not been able to sing or dance, we would have found our way around that. Except, look at the man. I mean, no wonder we didn't ask. Of course he can sing and dance. He can do anything. I never doubted that for a second. It's just something I want to do because I always want Doctor Who to feel every emotion and for it to resonate with the viewers at home in every single way. I want it to be the most memorable show you'll watch on television that week, and part of that is music. I mean, imagine not having a great soundtrack on Doctor Who. It would just be slightly less a show. So I've worked for many years on Doctor Who and almost every other drama I've ever made with Murray, because I think he's so magnificent and he's so in tune with me, and he writes such good tunes. You know, when other people might write beds of atmospheric incidental music, he writes tunes. He's been heading towards writing songs in Doctor Who for a long time. In fact, he's independently gone and written his own songs. When David Tennant first became the Doctor in the Christmas Invasion, and at the happy ending of that episode, there's a great big song playing that Murray just went and wrote. It's over the soundtrack. That was the soundtrack. So he's always loved it. So maybe I'm just slow to follow, but I think it's just pushing the show into a bigger sensory experience in every sense.
Something I'm wondering about that struck me in the episode that you're doing, a Beatles episode, is that Doctor Who has been around long enough now that you can do time travel episodes, like to the past, to do historic episodes within the window of time that Doctor Who has been around.
Yes. Exactly.
I don't know like how much you're going to do that going forward, but is that something that has struck you the way it has like struck me seeing that episode? That like, does that change the way you approach doing historical episodes now that the show is so long?
Not madly. There was an irresistible scene that I put into that Beatles episode where the Doctor and Ruby were running back to the TARDIS and they ran into a real police box by mistake. And we ended up cutting that, just good logistics. So why did we cut that? Why did we cut that? That's a great scene. And then they immediately step back going, oh, wrong police box. And they go to find the real TARDIS. Oh my God, why did we ever cut that? I was mad. So it is fun. It's funny because the Beatles is like the Beatles episode that when they recorded their first album, that's February 1963. So that's 10 months before the birth of Doctor Who. So we're just outside the lifeline, the timeline. But I know what you mean. I would happily do, oh my goodness, I love to do a 70s episode. Oh, imagine the 80s episode of Doctor Who. There's so much. Why haven't we done that? Right, I'm going to wrap this interview up immediately and go to right, because an 80s episode would just be so glorious. So it will happen. I'm quite sure it'll happen.
Very cool. I think I have time for one more question. So let me just ask, making television, from the outside looking in, it feels like the making of television has changed drastically since your first run on Doctor Who. And I'm just wondering, how many of the lessons you learned doing Doctor Who the first time apply to you coming back now? Or are you having to like relearn it like it's something brand new since you've been back?
I think in many ways, writing doesn't change. Writing fundamentally doesn't change. And when I'm at my desk, I don't think, oh, it's a new era now, I'm writing things differently. And equally, it's what I mean is it's hard every single time. Every single script is new. I don't mean I've got used to it and I've learned how to do it. I mean the opposite. I mean, every script is a blank page. Every script is hard work. Every script you sit there, believe me, every writer will tell you this. You'll know this yourself in your journalism. Every time you sit there going, oh, I can't do this, I give up. I should now go and become a gardener. I could never write anything in my life. So it's always hard work. The main thing that's changed, and especially with the bigger budget with Disney Plus, is the effects. But that means they simply take longer. And goodness me, we had some beautiful effects in the old days as well. But that's a longer process, and I love learning that stuff. That's one of the reasons I came back, was that I felt very out of touch with how to make modern special effects in telly. And I love that sort of telly. I like being on top of that sort of stuff. So that was a happy learning process for me. But it's very much, we came back with the same producer, Phil Collinson, the same executive producers, Julie Gardner and Jane Tranter. So it's not new in that sense. I brought back with me people who I knew would work themselves to death to make Doctor Who the best it could possibly be. That's what I wanted on my side, was soldiers, foot soldiers.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. I appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Cheers.